Some people call me the space cowboy. Yeah.
Howdy everybody, and welcome to Andy's Knowledge Report, special closed-door briefings about Scientology in the world that you need to know, with your host Andy Knowledge, the Space Cowboy. Today's Knowledge Report is about OSA trolls. And OSA is the Office of Special Affairs, so that's the part of the Church of Scientology that does the shifty work, might I say. It's like, I guess, the church's version of CIA, and of course what it does and its budget is incredibly small compared to the CIA. And when it comes to the government and stuff, they have CIA, they have NSA, they have naval intelligence, they have so many things. There's like 40 different intelligence agencies. I mean, even just the police in your city has its own little secret police. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of just intelligence activities going on in the world which we don't know about because it's something that's just not taught in school and it's not spoken about. Like, it's just, you can't understand how the world works unless you understand espionage and, you know, James Bond type sort of stuff, all that sort of stuff. You need to understand how they think, and you need to know what like an agent provocateur is. Agent provocateur, something like that. Anyway, you need to know what these things are. You need to know that they'll secretly assassinate people. You know what I mean? Like, and they'll make it look like the person committed suicide. Like, you need to know about this stuff, otherwise you'll just be confused. Anyway, but I was talking about the government, but when it comes to the Church of Scientology, yeah, their little mini version of the CIA is the Office of Special Affairs. And I think with the Catholic Church, their version is called the Jesuits. And they're much more funded and much bigger than the Church of Scientology and their Office of Special Affairs. I think I'm just saying this because there's the lefties and the people who hate on the Church of Scientology, and it's just like, you have no idea what's going on in the world. Like, you don't know other stuff that's going on. There's much bigger stuff to complain about. But anyway, the Church is doing shifty things. And one of the things that they do is internet trolls, like fake people on the internet that go around trying to like cause problems in independent Scientology. So this video is a bit about that, because I noticed that independent Scientologists, I don't think they can spot who is an OSA troll. And you know, obviously it's sort of hard to spot if someone's pretending to be a fake independent Scientologist. But I think I noticed that people who I thought it was pretty obvious that it's not really an independent Scientologist. I noticed some independent Scientologists didn't notice that, and I thought, well, you should be able to pick the obvious ones. Like, come on, you know what I mean? And one of them was John Watson. And he tricked me at the start, and you can listen to an interview with John Watson on the Indie Scientology podcast. And at that stage, I didn't know if it was a troll or not, but I interviewed him, and I was probably leaning towards him being not a troll, to be honest. But then it turned out he was a troll, and but I was suspicious about him. And anyway, he seems like a funny, friendly sort of guy, but he was still being a troll though. I mean, I could just sort of read his personality, but But anyway, he was being a troll and he was disturbing the groups. Anyway, but if you want to listen to his interview, listen to it, and you're hearing someone who's fake. But during the interview, though, I could tell he was telling stories about his past, about being involved with the church, and they weren't fake stories. So that's why that interview is kind of interesting, because you actually hear him answer things honestly, and he's not being fake. You know what I mean? Like, and he even said in the interview, he said he did some work for OSA in the past. And when he said that, I thought, oh, I wonder if you're doing some work for OSA now, you know. But anyway, so how can you pick if someone's an OSA troll? Because that's really important. I don't think this video is going to be that long, because it's going to be quite simple. And you can also pick trolls for other things. Like, for example, if you're trying to put out the truth about UFOs, or trying to put out the truth about chemtrails and weather modification, you'll get trolls coming after you and making, you know. Well, I'll tell you what they do, but you'll get it as well. So, So I'll explain what they do. Firstly, and this is what I noticed the trolls do when they're pretending to be independent Scientologists. They seem to be, their main thing they seem to do is waste time. So the sort of comments they write, the things that they do in the independent Scientology world, just waste a lot of time. And I'm trying to think of like an example. They'll just distract and start conversations about like different things, and just try and eat up a lot of time. And for example, with John Watson, he would, like, for example, if you got some messages, people have caught on to John Watson now, but when he was being a troll, if you got messages from him, there would be a lot of messages. You see what I mean? You wouldn't get a short, concise, to the point message like, call me at 7 p.m. or what does this course have in it? You know what I mean? Like short, simple things. Whatever it'll be something that'll be long, complex, and it'll take up your time. And I've been getting a bunch of emails recently from someone who's an OSA troll, and I'll give you an example. He would, whoever it was or whatever, he would be like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, I like your podcast, or blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it wouldn't be like a short little paragraph, you know what I mean? It'll be something long, and it'll have a lot of questions in it. So I'll be reading it, it'll be wasting my time. And so I could pretty much spot it after the first message. I was like, no, maybe... Well, I was suspicious from the start, because I was like, oh, okay, he was trying to just, like, talk to me about, like, Satanist crap, and he was trying to, like, pull me away from Scientology and just go, oh, are you interested in this? And have you heard that Tom Cruise is doing some Satanist symbol? And it was just, he started, like, the first message was like, okay, I thought, maybe this guy actually is an independent Scientologist, and he's... but he's just interested in some little Satanist thing. And I thought, okay, cool, we'll see where this goes, but I'm suspicious with this guy. I think I wrote back, and then he wrote back again, and then he continued going into more sort of outrageousness and more off-topic stuff, and the message got longer. And at that point I was like, oh yeah, this guy isn't the real deal. And then after that he sent another one, and I didn't write back, and they sent another one. He's like, check out this video, and blah, blah, blah. And so he was just trying to waste my time. Over and over again. And what John Watson would do would be a similar thing, whereas he would just soak up heaps of time and waste heaps of time. Like, let's say, I don't know, maybe some independent Scientologist was doing out ethics behavior or something, and he would write a thing saying, oh, the person maybe should do this, or maybe the person should do that, and then the actual independent Scientologist who's reading the comments or trying to handle the cycle will just get lots of and lots of time wasting. And you just got to understand like that. I mean, it would be good if I had some examples really to show you, but if you just understand the point of view whereas you can just tell the difference. Like, for example, I'll get a message from an actual independent Scientologist and it'll just be like, hey, I like your stuff. Oh yeah, I used to be on the ship in the 70s, blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, because we're dealing with an unusual topic, you might hear some out there information, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, something about an assassination or something like that. But I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. You know what I mean? But when it's a fake person, they would have a lot of outrageous information, and then it would just be a really long message and it won't be to the point. And you can just tell it's designed to try and waste my time. So when they're in the independent Scientology Facebook groups, they'll kind of encourage, long messages, kind of encourage things to waste time. They'll also just start up lame discussions, I noticed. They'll like post something that's like, hey, I read Problems of Work. In this chapter it talks about blah blah blah. And it'll just be like you read it and I'll just be like, what a shit comment. Like, this is just a crappy comment. You know what I mean? And it's just, again, they're just posting in the group, trying to build up cred, you know what I mean? Trying to get accepted by the group. And then they can start trying to cause more problems. Because there'll be like two types of trolls. There'll be the troll that will cause the problems. Then there'll be the fake independent Scientologist. And so the fake independent Scientologist will be there it's probably even the same person, right? But they've got two different accounts pretending to be two different people working for OSA. And the person who is pretending to just be a normal independent Scientologist, they'll occasionally post lame things and they're just there pretending to be independent Scientologists, right? And they won't do much. They'll just post more lame posts and stuff. The actual troll who's trying to cause problems, he'll post more things that cause problems, if you know what I mean, and more like write the really long posts that distract people and that sort of stuff. And what happens is, if there's any sort of fight or something happens, of course, the person who's pretending to be an independent Scientologist, who's just hanging on the outside, who just sometimes says lame comments, they'll come in and they'll protect the troll. And they'll say, no, you shouldn't kick him out of the group. You know, I agree with what he said, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and so he's backing up the other person. So it's like OSA tries to build up a little army, basically. So they've got multiple people and stuff, so that then if problems break out, they have people to back them up, so that they can protect their little group. And the whole thing they're supposed to do is, they're aiming at doing, is just wasting independent Scientologists' time and trying to stop actually good posts occurring in the groups. They don't want actually good posts and good discussions in the group and independent Scientology to get along together and grow. They want there to be little infightings and someone to be like, oh, did you hear what that person said? You hear what that person did, and that sort of stuff. And the people who are suspicious, I was suspicious they were trolls, and like working for OSA. Of course, recently when I got into my personal drama that happened, of course they came in and chimed in and like firstly spread what happened with me, which isn't necessary, but of course they were like, yes, we can talk about this and try and spread it, because they wanted to try and dirty my name. They tried to cause fights about it and that sort of stuff. And when I saw the people on Facebook who did this, I was like, oh, of course it's going to be them. The people who I knew were actually genuine independent Scientologists who were actually normal, nice people and that sort of stuff, the way they reacted was totally different, and they reacted appropriately. And I thought, yeah, that's of course the fake trolls would act like this. You know what I mean? Like, let me say, I'll give you an example. Let's say an independent Scientologist had a divorce with his wife. Now, a proper Scientologist probably wouldn't really write anything about it, and if somehow it came up, they might mention it a little bit or something and mention it in a post somehow. Okay? But what the troll will do is they'll think of a way, how can I bring up this divorce, and then how can I cause like a fight by making this post, and then how can I make people think bad of this independent Scientologist who had a divorce. And they'll say, look, they'll post something, they'll pretend like they're being an independent Scientologist, and they'll go, oh, Jim got into a divorce, yeah, he's been drinking a lot or something, and he shouldn't have done it, but you know, I defend Jim and I like him and stuff. And that post that they've written is just a load of rubbish. They're just writing that post to try and cause a discussion and an argument and trying to dirty Jim's reputation. And then one of their other trolls will come in and go and comment and go, oh, well, I think blah, 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 blah. Or they'll say, I'm making this post because someone needs to address Jim because Jim's giving independent Scientology a bad name. And it's just like, no, you're just trying to cause problems and that sort of stuff. So, I think that, I don't know, I know I've already said it, but I guess just the main thing is that they try and waste people's time, particularly if you're actually like an independent Scientology auditor. You know what I mean? Like, you're actually doing something. They want to waste your time. Like, I'll give you an example, okay? If I try and interview someone for my podcast who's secretly an OSA troll, and I book it in, and we go on Skype, we meet up on Skype, and I go on at 9 p.m. or whatever, do you think they'll be there? No. They'll cancel like in the last minute, and then they'll say, oh, can we reschedule? And like, they'll do those, do you see what I mean? They're trying to disturb things and cause problems for the podcast and waste my time and that sort of stuff. So with the auditors or the actual people involved in the Scientology tech, they'll send big, long, lengthy messages debating Scientology tech and saying this is what happened and that's what happened, and they just try and cause problems, and yeah, it's obvious. Now the problem is that with these trolls is that rarely do you actually have the smoking gun, like the actual evidence that you're like, yeah, this is 100% a troll. You can only really go by your knowingness and by what the evidence sort of indicates, and you're like, yeah, this person just seems to be wasting time and isn't really an actual independent Scientologist. And you have to sort of cut them loose. And that's what I don't see enough of. I think you have to just kick them out of the group. Like if you got a Scientology Facebook group or something, just kick them out. Don't be too concerned about making a mistake. Maybe write a message saying, look, I think you might be a troll, and I'm sorry, I just have to kick you out. Maybe you're not, but you know, I'm just going to have to kick you out because I don't have the time to invest to really investigate this, and I don't know if I can ever really find out if you're a troll or not. But it's just easier for me to just kick you out. And if he's actually a proper independent Scientologist, he'll see it from your point of view and go, okay, all right, fair enough. You know what I mean? That's what I would be like. If I got an actual message from an independent Scientologist who said, you know, Andy, your posts are causing problems in our Facebook group. I actually think you might be an OSA troll. I'm just going to kick you out. I would actually say, okay, fair enough, good, because you shouldn't waste all this time investigating if someone's a troll or not. I like the idea of just not letting that troll waste your time. So you're just better off just kicking them out. It's just easier. Just be quick with it. Just get them out. Maybe you made a mistake, but who cares? It's just easy just to just offload it. Offload the person out of the group. It's just easy to get them out. Don't, give them all these second chances and try and really investigate and put all this effort in. Just go, look, stuff it. Just kick them out. And it might be unfair, but it's just like the troll's goal is to just waste your time. And so the longer you let them stay in your group and cause you problems and suck up your time, if you think of how much time John Watson wasted of people, he did a really good job of it. I got to give him a pat on the back, because I just thought he was aberrated, really. He really did a good job of coming across as just being aberrated, and he wasted so many people's time. And then eventually in the Indies just kicked him out of groups and stuff and realised he was a troll, but it took a while. So you got to get them out as quick as you can, and if you make a mistake, well, who cares? And if he is a genuine independent Scientologist, then he won't protest too much, and he'll go, okay, fair enough, you're right. I don't think, you're a independent Scientologist that's busy, it's got important work to do, and I don't want to waste your time, so what, just kick me out. It's just easier. You know what I mean? Anyway, it's a good policy to have. When you've got important work to do, the best thing to do is to not really take your time with things and that sort of stuff. It's just better just go boom, just kick him out. You know what I mean? So there's another thing as well with these OSA trolls and stuff, is that they might pretend to be a PC that's wanting to get audited. So this is where you should be able to, I'm assuming, I'm not being condescending or anything, but now it's your time to think, what do you think a troll would do if it's going up to an independent Scientologist and trying to get audited? What do you think it will do? Would it do the same sort of tactics that it was doing in the Facebook groups? Yes. The same thing, the same goal. It's just to sort of cause problems, to waste a lot of time, just to waste a lot of time. That's the whole point. It's to drag things on for the auditor and make things difficult for the auditor and make the auditor just, give him a hard time. OSA would approach it, you have to see things from OSA's point of view. OSA would approach it from the point of view of, okay, we're going to go into this Facebook group, or we're going to go to this independent Scientology org, and this is what we're going to achieve. One of them might be to be a pretend PC for as long as possible, cause problems for as long as possible, just minor little problems, but take a lot of time for as long as possible, and actually essentially never get caught and just waste up as much time for as long as possible. Then they might choose to go down that path. But then there's also the other option, whereas they'll say, we're going to go in here, we're going to cause a big problem. And we're going to send someone in who's going to pretend to be an independent Scientologist. And they'll get found out maybe fairly quickly or whatever. Or maybe we don't want them to get found out, but we're happy for them to get kicked out. Okay, but we want to just cause a big problem. We want them to go in there and cause a big fight. And in that case, they will go up to an auditor and they wouldn't spend many hours behind the chair. But whatever their plan is, it's just a short-term attack to cause drama and then leave. Then they'll use that drama to badmouth that auditor on the internet and say, look what this auditor did. He did blah, blah, blah to me. He caused these problems. And it's not a real fight. They set it up from the start and they tried to disturb it. They tried to create a problem for this auditor in the first place. So you can look at it from the Facebook group point of view. they'll send someone into the Facebook group and they'll say, look, this person's only going to last 2 months in this group. We're going to build a little bit of trust, and after a month drop a bomb that will try and cause a big fight in the group or something like that. And it'll only be a 3-month thing in total. But then there are the other ones that they'll say, we're going to keep this person, this pretend person, in this Facebook group for long term, eat up a lot of time and resources and that sort of stuff. So there's different ways they can go about causing problems. You just got to be creative and got to think. So I think, I don't think I have too much more to say in this video. It's kind of, I guess, if you can get your hands on, and Scott Gordon leaked this stuff, if you can get hands on the OSA network bulletins or something, it's like a PDF file or something, and it basically has some, it has like confidential church info, stuff written by L. Ron Hubbard and Mary Sue, but signed by L. Ron Hubbard, of course, but you can tell it's written by Mary Sue. And it's got information on how to do, I guess, espionage and this sort of intelligence activities and stuff. That's handy because it gives you an idea of how things work and stuff. There's also a bit of information about psychiatry, and it takes you back to like the 1960s and stuff. It's quite interesting. So you want to read that. I've found that in order to spot shifty intelligence activities, the trick is to you got to watch a lot of conspiracies, really. Just watch as many conspiracy theory videos as you can, and you get an idea of how they operate. And it's just, you're secretly doing stuff to cause problems and to cause dramas, and you destroy any evidence so that there's just no way you could ever get proven in a court what you've done. Because you have to say, with a court, you've got to go to a judge, you've got to have, the police have to have evidence and say, this is what this person did, blah, 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 blah. But the thing is that with these intelligence activities and all that sort of stuff, the evidence is destroyed. So you're rarely ever going to have enough evidence of that person, like of the bad stuff that person's done, in order to convict them. The judge will only be able to look at the little bits and pieces of evidence you have and say, look, it seems like the person has done this and they're doing shifty intelligence operations. They probably did do it, but we just don't have enough evidence. And they're going to be laughing, going, yeah, we destroyed the evidence. That's how intelligence activities work. Like, for example, if you wanted to try and convict the guys who did the 9/11, you just couldn't do it. You just couldn't do it. There's not enough evidence. And I think that's why I'm trying to say, with these intelligence activities and conspiracies and stuff, there's never enough evidence to say 100% sure. There's never enough to stand there as a judge and say, this is the person who did it, this is when they did it, they're going to jail for 10 years. Okay? There's never enough information to do that. You can only get to the point where you go, this is probably what happened. So when it comes to spotting these trolls, you can only really ever get to the point where you're like, this person's probably a troll. It's most likely a troll. You can never go, this person definitely is a troll. That's what I'm saying. It's just like, you're better off just kicking them out of the Facebook groups or out of your independent Scientology centers as soon as you can. And I mean, even if they aren't, even the people I'm thinking of who I'm suspicious if they're trolls or not, even if they are genuine Scientologists, they're shitty people. You know what I mean? Like, they're not the sharpest tool in the shed. They're not high quality people. They're like, if you're going to grade them as people, they're like D's. So who cares? Just let them go. Even if they're not trolls, they're just they're not that valuable. You know what I mean? Just let them go. Like they're not going to be. Their comments aren't that worthwhile. They're just not anything. They're just taking up space. You know what I mean? So you're sitting there thinking, should I kick out this person out of my independent Scientology group on Facebook? And you're deciding they could definitely be a troll, or they could just be a lame person. Well, who cares? Just kick them out. Like, either way, they're just a shitty person. You know what I mean? And I'm not being mean to people who are lame, but it's just that if they seem like they're a troll, then they're probably a troll. You know what I mean? I'm going to be doing an interview on my podcast with Jonathan Burke coming up, and he's going to talk a bit about dramas and stuff. And when that's on the internet, you want to listen to that, because I can tell he's going to go into how he's had PCs come to him that cause him dramas and problems and that sort of stuff. There's a reason why independent Scientology isn't that big in America, and it's because there's just too much infighting and dramas and all these sorts of problems. Yes, there is a thing where people can't agree on what standard tech is, but of course the trolls come in and exploit that and cause problems with that and try and make the people fight amongst each other and all that sort of stuff. So just don't buy into any of this bullshit. We're all friends. Yeah, there are independent Scientologists who I completely disagree with, and probably even annoy me, like they annoy me. I probably annoy them. But there's no need to get into any fights. We're both freedom fighters, if you know what I mean. And just don't go along with it. So I think that's all I need to say in this video. I think I've said everything. It's part of the problem is that I feel you need a knowingness on this, and I feel you need I think it's actually an OT ability, to be honest, in spotting a troll. Like it's more spotting who to trust. You know, how can you trust someone? And obviously you can use the tone scale, that helps. But this is like meeting someone and sort of instantly having to try and read them and say, is this person trustworthy? You know what I mean? Like with me, for example, now I've tried. I got to tell you this. I got to tell you this. I've tried a hypnotic regression. Now, before you independent Scientologists have a heart attack, let me rephrase that. It's almost like a Dianetics session. It really isn't that different. And when L. Ron Hubbard invented Dianetics in the early 50s, that's hypnotic regression. It's basically you're getting someone to like lie there. He actually had people lie there. And you go back into memories and stuff, and you're basically getting to go into your mind and that sort of stuff. And when I tried the hypnotic regression, it wasn't like I was sitting there and a psych was like destroying my mind and that sort of stuff. Don't think of it like that. Like, I had to find someone who I could trust. But it was very similar to a Dianetics session. Like, I was lying there and the lady was just like, you know, she was like, okay, we're going to go into the deep levels of your mind, so just calm down and calm down. She was like, okay, you're walking down a ladder. And then we eventually accessed like some sort of engram, for example. And I wasn't like, she wasn't in control. I could have opened my eyes up and walked out of the room at any second. And also, she wasn't sitting there implanting suggestions into my mind to try and screw me up, which is what like an evil psych would do. It literally was just like a Dianetics session, except it spent more time trying to get into my bank, basically into my mind. And I actually thought that was better. I was like, yeah, good, because in Dianetics it was like you sit there and they ask you the question, they go blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I don't know, like I found it hard to access my mind. But this little stuff you do beforehand in the hypnotic regression, it like helps to access your mind. It just calms you down for a bit longer. You go into like the deep theta state of mind, and it just helps you to access those memories. And I actually ran my first proper engram doing a hypnotic regression. I would say the first proper engram. I actually felt the somatic. So it was some incident that was going on, and my arms actually stiffened up, and I was running it, and I was like, whoa, my arms are stiffening up. And I think I maybe even moved my arms towards this position, but I was like, part of the engram involved like really stiff forearms. And I was like, wow, I could actually feel the pain in the forearms and the tension. And I was sitting there going, wow, this is like running a proper engram, right? I'm actually going through it. And I got case gain from it, and it was interesting. I got some really interesting cognitions. It was really out there. But when I'd run the Dianetic sessions at the church, the shitty ones, you'll go back to like a bee sting or whatever, and because it wasn't in the environment and the practitioner wasn't that good, and we didn't do these things to get myself to access the engram properly, it was just like I'd run out an engram and I'll be like, yeah, this is what's happening and stuff, and I didn't really re-experience it and really feel it. I didn't properly run it, and I didn't really get any wins from the Dianetics auditing that I had at the church. It just wasn't that good. So when I did this hypnotic regression, this session of it, I was like, oh wow, this is really interesting. This is like really going into it and stuff, and I can actually feel it. I was like, this is how you run an engram. You know what I mean? And that's partially because the skill of actually running Dianetics well has been lost in the church. It's not really around. Everyone's like these robots that just are paranoid about standard text, so they just read the book and they don't really understand it. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't see anyone lying on their back, whereas Owen Hubbard was letting people lie on their back in the 50s and stuff. And I think people should lie on their back and close their eyes. I think it's a better way of accessing the memories. Anyway, so when I tried that hypnotic regression, it was with a UFO lady, and I went and I spoke to her and stuff, and the UFO groups have a similar problem where they've got their own version of OSA that's causing problems for their groups, right? So again, it's a dangerous situation. You can think of it as a dangerous situation, just the same as doing independent Scientology is a dangerous situation, because there's enemies out there who don't like independent Scientology, and there's enemies of the UFO groups that don't want the truth about UFOs coming out. They could be working secretly for the military or whatever. Anyway, so when I went to this UFO lady, I met her and I spoke to her and stuff, and I had to judge her. I had to go, is this girl some evil psych or something, or is she working for the government or whatever? Will she implant crazy stuff in my mind or something like that? So I had to like read her, and I spoke with her, and eventually I just had to go off knowingness, and I could see that she's the real deal and she was nice and that sort of stuff. And so then we did the hypnotic regression. But if she had some out points, if she just seemed not quite right and that sort of stuff, if my knowingness was telling me, no, this person you can't trust, then I wouldn't have gone ahead with it, because I would have said this is risky. But it requires not just physical observation, it does require some sort of knowingness or OT ability to instantly read if someone's an honest person. And we have this ability, like for example, you might have heard this, and I think Owen Hubbard mentions it, with the watch thing, that some people don't use watches and they can actually develop the ability to just know what time it is any time of the day. We can do that. I know I can do it. I don't bother, and I also like watches, but I know that if I practice it, I can really have a good idea of what time it is. Like, not exactly, but I can always be like, if it's around 1:45, or if it's 1 o'clock or 1:15, I'll be like, oh, it's kind of around 1:45, or it's around 1, or it's around 1:30. Like, I can know what time it is. You know what I mean? Anyway, but I don't exercise it, right? But you can exercise it. Now, this is the same, I think, with the ability to read people, like to see if they're honest and trustworthy or not. You can, instead of looking at physical universe evidence to see if they're good or not, you just try and instantly judge them straight away. Like, are they trustworthy? You know what I mean? Are they good? You know what I mean? Are they affected by the dark side of the force, if you know what I mean? And I bet you can get this ability and you can do it. And it happens with me with my day job, because I meet people and stuff, and they just trust me straight away. And I know that they're using this, they're not aware of it. They're not usually spiritual people or anything, they're just wogs. But I can tell they're using this ability of like, yeah, I can trust this guy. You know, yeah, I can leave this guy alone in my house for like an hour while I go to the shops or whatever, because I work at people's houses and stuff. So there's an element of trust there, you know what I mean? And I notice it in customers or whatever, when they just see me, they instantly can feel the theta, or they can just judge me. They can just tell, oh yeah, this guy's not shifty, right? So they exercise it and stuff. They exercise this ability. And we can all exercise this ability. And this is the ability you need when it comes to spotting trolls. And you need to exercise this OT ability. Like, who can you trust? You know what I mean? It's important in this field, because you need to sort of judge people straight away as if, are they someone you can open up to or whatever. So when it comes to spotting trolls, you need to start using this ability of just going with your knowingness and going, is this person really real? And look, it's a lot easier when you can meet them in person. It's probably harder on the internet, but you have to develop this ability to just be able to sort of go with your knowingness. And I guess it's like working out the time thing and going, oh, I think it's this time. And you can actually work out what time it is without having a clock. So you need to do the same thing with these people. You've got to judge them and you go, okay, I don't know the person's history, blah, 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 but can I trust them, you know? And usually a sign for this is that something's not quite right about the person, or the person seems a little bit shifty or a little bit outpointing or something, and then that's a sign that the person's not good. But anyway, this ability is really important if you're in life, if you're looking for someone to build your house, or for a lawyer or something else, or a mechanic, for example, because I mean, they could open up your car and they could tell you all these things are wrong with it, and that's a lie. It's only one thing that's wrong with your car, and then they could just rip you off. So this ability is important. You need to be able to walk up to someone, meet them, and be able to read if they're trustworthy or not straight away. And so in spotting trolls, this is the ability you have to develop and work on. And I think it's totally possible for you to be able to get it. And yeah, you can tell when people are fake and shifty and that sort of stuff. They put on acts, they go out of valence. That's one thing, they go out of valence when they're being fake, because if they're a bit of a con man, for example, they need to act more professional than what they really are. They need to say, oh, yes, yes, oh, I'll fix your car, and this is what I do, and blah, blah, I put this in here like that, and they have to put in a lot of effort. Whereas if they're honest, they just say, yeah, this is wrong, what's wrong with your car, and I'll fix it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just quite sort of direct. And they're not putting on these acts. That, like, think of it this way. If you see someone and they're talking to like a grandma, and they're suddenly like, hi grandma, blah, 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 and you can see their personality change, that's a sign the person's a bit of a 1-1. Like, that's like a sign, you know, that, that's a bit odd. So if you're meeting someone who wants to fix your car or something, and they're like, oh, hi, blah, 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 and like, you're like, oh, this person's a little bit. But if you're meeting someone, they're like, hi, and they're like, yeah, so this is what's wrong with your car, blah, blah, blah. You can tell that the person's in valence. You can tell they're actually there. They're not putting on this fake personality. And that's a good sign that you can trust them, because it's like, when they're putting on a fake personality, you have to go, why are they being fake then? What are they trying to sell me on? What are they trying to be shifty about? You know what I mean? But anyway, I think that's it for this video. I think this is really something that you yourself need to do, and an ability that you need to develop. And it's definitely got like, it's 50% data, 50% actual, like 50% data on the person and what you can observe, 50% knowingness. Like that definitely comes into it. And I'll give you another example. I went to one a UFO group, and one of the people in the group, I'm not sure, I'm not totally sure, but is very much likely seen to be an agent for whoever's covering up the truth about UFOs. And I could just sort of, my knowingness sort of told me, and the evidence sort of told me, like his energy didn't seem as positive about the subject, and the comments he was making in the discussion weren't like contributing to the group, and they were sort of just like confusing things, and they just weren't with it. And he also had his hair like a little bit messy, like in this quirky way, and it was like, to me it was like he was trying to discredit UFOs. So if someone walked in the room and they were like, oh, there's that UFO meeting, and they see someone with wacky hair, they're like, oh yeah, those people are wacky, they're the UFO guys, you know what I mean? This guy, what he did is he did the same thing that the trolls do in the Facebook group, where they make comments. They're always there and active, you know what I mean? They're always part of the group discussion, you know what I mean? They don't just make one comment and then comment again in a month's time. Like they're regularly attending the groups. They're regularly commenting, that sort of stuff. And they just, like, someone will write a comment and then they'll comment back, but their comment doesn't fully make sense and doesn't contribute to the comment. And it's just like, you know, like someone will say, oh, I think that there's UFOs in underground bases, and then they'll say something like, oh, blah, 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 and it just sort of like, it just doesn't contribute. Anyway, so what he was doing very similar stuff to the OSA trolls on Facebook, and it was just kind of interesting. And it's just like, you know, I'm not 100% sure, but he probably was a troll. And if I was in charge of that group and I went to another meeting and he did similar things again, I would just be like, okay, well, let's just kick this person out, because like I said before, he's either just a lame person or he actually is a troll. And he's probably most likely a troll, but I would have just kicked him out. But no, of course, this guy's probably still gone to the group. I actually sent a message to the guy who was in charge of the group saying, hey, look, be careful about this guy. I think he's no good, and he's just there monitoring your group, and he's trying to stop your group from growing, because this group was not growing. It wasn't in normal or affluence. And it's just like, when I saw this dude there, I was like, oh yeah, of course, because there's the SP there that's just causing problems and, you know, stopping things from ever really getting anywhere. And that's what's happening with the independent Scientology Facebook groups. The people in there that are just trying to cause problems and stop them from ever really getting anywhere. And the main message of this video, and the main thing I noticed, was that you independent Scientologists that are in charge of these groups and are coming across these bad PCs and stuff, you have to just kick them out. You just have to be fast with it and not let them waste your time. Learn from the John Watson mistake. Don't give them chances. Don't give them another chance. I'll give them another chance. I'll give them another chance. Don't. Just cut them out. Just be like, just get rid of it. Anyway, thanks for listening. I've been your host, Andy Nolch, the Space Cowboy. This has been another Andy's Knowledge Report. Take care, and remember, nothing is impossible.
Some people call me the Space Cowboy. Yeah.